Hey everyone, just want to reflect on my last year of shooting. So I'm going to see if I can edit in some photos into this video. So right now, this is the first time I went shooting using the Glock 45. You can kind of see it's all over the place, so let's look at that. So as you can see, all over. There's just like no grouping at all in that session, that firing session, you want to call it that. No grouping at all. It's like I grabbed a fistful of chocolate chips and threw them all, and they just all over the thing. And the thing is I was trying to aim, at that center point on the chest, for center mass, and all over the place, hit everywhere. And the funny thing is obviously a new shooter. My first thought is that the iron sights on this gun are messed up. That's got to be it. It can't be me. It was me, obviously. So the more I learned about shooting, the more I learned about the little issues that can arise as you shoot more and more. A lot of times, if you're a new shooter, the first 2 or 3 shots you might send down range at the target might be really good. And you might think, wow, I'm a natural. And then your body starts to react. It starts putting 2 and 2 together between the gun jolting from the explosion, from the round going off, and the noise. So your body starts reacting to that, starts anticipating it, and you begin to start do shot anticipation, which then causes right-handed shooters to shoot low and left, and that's what you tend to see on some of my current targets. So this is the target from just yesterday. I'll show that now. So as you can see, between those two sessions, they're a year apart. But you can still see in the new one that the grouping is much better, but you can still see how there's like a low and left happening. And that's from the shot anticipation or flinching. Some people like to split that up. I don't really know which it is technically, but obviously I'm letting something cause me to shoot a little low. I don't know if it's a hand thing, like if it's as I pull the trigger, I'm not isolating, the movement, and there's a really subtle thing happening in my hand that's causing the pistol to jerk a little on a really minute level. Because the further away you get down lane, the more that a subtle shift will matter. Because as it travels down lane, the trajectory causes it to veer in whatever direction. So it just exacerbates that subtle movement, which is one of the benefits of shooting at 25 yards, because you really get a sense of, am I doing something wrong? Like up close, you might be like, oh, my groups are great. You might have a nice little tight group at 5 or 7 yards, and then you take it to 25, and that group is really like gigantic. So practice makes perfect. You can see I'm still involved with practicing. But a part of practice comes with an aspect of practicing, of shooting regularly, is learning what you're doing and trying to be observant of what you're doing and how you can change that. And you can address that through shifting your grip, focusing more on holding, your firing hand a little more or less, holding it a little differently, doing like more of a C-clamp hold, or I was, for a period of time, I was taking my pinky off, and that was actually helping a lot. And there's actually a YouTuber who got into that, and that's one of the other things I kind of discovered on my own, that when I would disengage my pinky, and I would often cross it over to remove it from the bottom of the grip, when I was shooting Glock, that seemed to actually help. Yesterday, I did not do that. Yesterday, I was shooting my Glock, and I didn't do that yesterday. I kind of wish I had thought about it and maybe saw how that affected things to revisit that issue. Didn't do that. Well, that's the fun thing about going to the range. You get to try new shit. So maybe next time I shoot the Glock, I'll do that. Other things to do, you tighten up your support hand a little bit more, and you loosen up on the trigger hand a little less, and just so that one is really dominating. It's weird, like tweaking the grip is a little weird because the grip more so is about recoil, like managing recoil, than it is about actually like marksmanship. Marksmanship is all about aiming, which the grip isn't about aiming. The grip is about holding the gun. But marksmanship is more so about aiming, and it all boils down to how you pull that trigger. Like if you pull it straight back, or if you're slowly like moving the gun a little to, depending on where you let that trigger fall on the pad on your finger. Like some people say they knuckle it, some people go all the way in, and I've had people tell me this. I've been trying to do the end of my finger on the trigger, just to try to pull it back. So my fingers are a little short, so if I wrestle the trigger with my finger, I'm more likely to turn the gun more. It's all about finding what works for you. Take people's suggestions and just find out what works for you. And then the real kicker is that different guns shoot different. Like if I go from my Glock to the CZ, then I have to change things a little bit more. With the CZ, I've been doing more of a C-clamp grip with my trigger hand, and the same type of grabbing using the end of my finger to pull the trigger. But you can have all sorts of fancy things on your gun. You can have the most expensive like red dot sight in the world, but if you can't pull that trigger, it doesn't matter, right? If you can't pull the trigger right, it doesn't matter what you have on the gun or what kind of fancy gun you have. You're just gonna fuck up the shot anyway. There was one YouTuber who he actually showed this. He was like, he barely held the gun, and he even did it on one foot. And he was shooting at 25 yards, and he pulled the trigger. And he got it on paper at 25 yards, I mean, he wasn't trying to get, like, a pinpoint accuracy, but he was trying to show that it's more about pulling the trigger than it is about your grip. Everyone's a little different. I watch videos with guys who, when they shoot guns, that gun never moves. And I don't know how the hell they accomplish that. Never. Because there's always a little bit of a for me. And I'm like, how the hell are they firing a gun that isn't a 22 and it's not moving? I was like, I'm baffled by that. I mean, maybe that comes with experience and years of shooting. I don't know. I mean, one of the things I got into doing was I bought one of these so that I could strengthen up. I'm a right-handed person, naturally. So I do, I'll do that with my right hand, but then I'll do the same amount with my left hand. And in the very beginning, I couldn't do this. My left hand was that much weaker than my right hand that I could not pull the same amount of pressure, the same amount of tension on this. And the nice thing about this is that you can adjust the tension. But I'll do that, every night I'll pick it up just a couple times, just to kind of keep things going and strengthen things up and just keep everything going. It gets harder and harder. But I got into doing that to help me with my support grip. And I just, it's all about experimentation and to see what works. But if you're a new shooter and you're getting results that are all over the place, it is not your sights. You're doing something wrong. You need to figure out what it is, and you'll get better, If you can, at the range that you go to, if you can film yourself shooting, you might learn something from doing that. Some ranges don't allow you to take pictures. Some do. Some are very welcoming to photos and video and social media exposure. Or you go with a friend and hopefully, or you pay for instruction or training, and they can give you some insight. I know when I shoot, sometimes I will have a slight It's very subtle now, but I'll do one of those, and that'll definitely cause everything to fall low and left. One thing I've learned about myself is that I enjoy shooting so much that I get excited. So like I literally feel like the butterflies, in my stomach, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start shooting, and that causes me to flinch more, to have that to shoot in a way that is just not productive for marksmanship, for target shooting. And so I've learned that when I feel that sensation welling up in me as I'm about to shoot, I try to focus more on aiming and less more on if I'm pulling the trigger and when that's going to happen, when the gun's going to go off. A friend of mine, she had said that it should be a surprise. The gun going off should be a surprise. And I've had a lot of success when I managed to achieve that mindset and experience where the shot is a surprise. Going off, it becomes a surprise that I get better shots that way. So there's definitely something to shooting regularly and being mindful of what you're doing and doing your own research, taking what people say with a grain of salt, trying it out, applying it, seeing how it works, but also listen to yourself, because only you really know what you're feeling on the inside. I mean, someone can observe something, but they don't know what's going on internally. So like if you're like me, where I'm feeling this bit of anticipation, I know that's going to mess my shot up. So I try to breathe through it. I find that moment in my breathing where everything is calm and centered, and then I shoot. So, just kind of wanted to talk about that. It definitely improved over the year, as you can see, and I hope that next year it's even tighter. Mind you, when I shot that first time, the first picture, that was like at 5 yards, maybe 7, maybe, I doubt it. It might have been 5. So think about that, 5 yards, and the bullet, they were everywhere on that sheet. And that's a big paper, that might have been one of the larger targets. So we're talking maybe like 2 by 1.5 or something, like one of the big pieces of paper targets at 5 yards, and it looked like that when I got done. While the target from yesterday was one of the smaller ones, one of the smaller spider burst targets, and that was at 10, and I even moved it to 15. And then I've been getting into doing a sacrificial piece of paper thing that I picked up from the Humble Marksman, where it was a test to see whether or not you can shoot USPSA. He said to hang a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 paper up at 25 yards and see if you can get 10 rounds on it. So I do that now. I close out my day with, whenever I'm shooting, I close the day out with a piece of paper at 25 yards, and I see what I can do. And this was yesterday's. So as you can see, with my paper from yesterday, I got 7 out of 10. It's not a spectacular grouping by any means. I mean, those 4 were actually kind of nice, but 7 out of 10. One of them being like right off the edge of the paper, but you can see it. But 7 out of 10 at 25 yards. Little paper, that big, 8.5 by 11. It's a nice little test, and I had to work to be able to get to do something like that. And hopefully within a year from now, everything will be a lot tighter. I'll have 10 rounds on the paper, and it'll be nice and much tighter than that. So practice does indeed make perfect.